Hello, everybody. Welcome to Pharmaceutical Soccer on this momentous, beautiful day. Another 3-point match time that we get to talk about. Of course, Pharmaceutical Soccer here to talk about Nashville SC. I'm here with Valer Shabilla and Clay Trainum, as always. My friends, my colleagues, my peoples, my um cohorts.
That fell apart quickly.
What?
I said that fell apart quickly.
I thought it went well. I thought it was perfectly fine.
Anyway, Valer, how was your weekend?
Hey, good. Steven, you should write your intros. That way you can keep going a little bit more and actually do your job.
I wrote that down. Excuse me. You guys, the
You
last
wrote
time,
that down? So you've thought about that before?
absolutely. I mean, look, every time that I have tried to do something like that, when I did my whole we're gonna ride down the river Styx together in the boat and I'll be your ferryman, you guys gave me no reactions, none. It's the ones that are like that where I get reactions from.
Yeah, okay, cool. Nashville SC, big win, yeah. No, I'm just kidding. Before we get into Nashville SC, it was a pretty busy 4th of July for me, and some good, some bad, but overall just another year in this country for me. So, I don't know where I'm going with this. Just here enjoying the long weekend. Really, it was nice to not have to wake up early on Friday, even though I kind of did. But it's nice. It's nice. Did you guys have a good time 4th of July?
Yeah. My typical 4th of July custom is going to get Mexican food at some point. And so I've been doing that for like 15 years. And so we did that and then went and watched the fireworks from East Park, which is what we've done the last few years that I've been with my wife. So it's pretty good 4th, pretty laid back weekend otherwise. Got to take someone to their first ever pro soccer match on Saturday, and I think I chose a good match. I think I chose a good match because it was actually like an interesting scoreless match for a while, which it was like the concept that a scoreless match can be intriguing and interesting, I think is a thing that a lot of people need to learn. And so, yeah, it was a great weekend. How was yours? How was it in the capital, Stephen?
I wasn't really in the capital, so but I was in Athens, Georgia. So I guess the capital but it was good. I celebrated the 4th like everybody else did in watching Joey Chestnut absolutely dominate the Nathan's hot dog eating contest. Let's play a game just because I know that both of you do not pay attention to I mean, Clay might because Clay does. Blair definitely does not.
That feels like a
Who
targeted fat guy comment.
that absolutely not. But so what is higher at the current moment? Joey Chestnut's the amount of times he's won the hot dog eating contest, or Nashville SC's current unbeaten streak?
I feel
How
like
often
Joe
does a contest happen?
Every
once a
year.
year on 4th
It
of
is
July.
yearly. And he is
Uh,
40, I think he's 41 years old, if that helps.
that does help. Thank you. Actually, I
Yes.
have no idea
I think
what.
it's a push. I think it's a tie. I think it's both 14.
I think Joey is it Joey. Joey
Yes.
takes the win here. I think he has about 17 to 21 wins.
You had it with that first one. It is 17. Joey Chestnut
Let's
has
go.
won the hot dog eating competition 17 times in
I
comparison
am
to
not upset
Nashville.
that I got that wrong.
In comparison
I
to
just want to
Nashville
say, just
SC.
take a moment to shout out to the homie Kobayashi.
You do gotta love Kobayashi. It is fantastic. But no,
That was the guy before Joey Chestnut.
it was a good weekend all around for me. Obviously, good holiday time. Just it was very relaxing for me. It was probably this is just segue to kind of just what we're talking about here. It was the first time that I was sitting in watching a match, I think this year probably, in just straight jealousy of what was going on at Geodis Park on Saturday. Like when it came to just the energy, the vibe of the people around, you could hear everything going on through the broadcast and you could just feel the energy specifically in Geodis over that weekend. Um, I think it was a perfect storm of events where we haven't played a home match since early June. Um, team is doing really well against a Philadelphia team that is also really good. And I think there's stuff to talk about there as well because Philadelphia is still a good team. But what was it like for the both of you specifically to be there in Philadelphia? I mean, not in Nashville against Philadelphia.
The thing you're saying about the broadcast, I do think it showed it really well. Just going back and seeing some of the highlights and just seeing how that crowd was portrayed during the broadcast. I think it did rely what was going on. I got a text from somebody this morning who covers the league nationally, and he pretty much was like, I can never tell from the broadcast, but it sounded like it was like really big. But he's like, I can never tell from those chairs. Was there really that many people there? Like, what was going on? And obviously there were a lot of people there, but it wasn't just the amount of people. While that's important on its own, I do think the winning really is what brings this sort of energy to the stadium, what brings fans into the stadium, and then honestly just the way the game panned out, where there wasn't a whole lot of dull moments. Which, going back to what Clay said, it's crazy to say about a game that was 0-0 for 100 minutes of game time, but there weren't many dull moments. It was BJ Collins described it as bang bang in the in the post-match press conference. He said bang bang twice in that press conference. I was counting, um, and I agree with him. It was bang bang. Whether it was people flying into tackles, little fights here and there, shots on target, all of that just added to the atmosphere. And honestly, it just showcased what this could be. It's not the first time we've seen it at Geodis Park. It's not the first time we've seen it in Nashville or Nashville SC, but it is the first time in a long while that we've seen it, all those factors come together to create this amazing atmosphere.
Clay, really
The
quick before you get into your point, are we going to let Valaire get away with what he just said specifically? Are we going to let him get away with it?
get away with.
I received a text from my guy that covers everybody nationally. How cool do
Oh,
you think you
whatever.
are, Valaire?
Whatever.
Okay, sure. I just didn't want to say the name, like, because like it. Anyway, just go ahead,
We
Clay. Sorry.
we can't undercut Valaire's journalistic credibility because we trade on it.
That's
Now,
fair.
the what I will say is that I think the thing that stands out to me now, we've seen bigger crowds at Geodis than what we saw. We have. And I think we've seen crowds that are similarly excited. Obviously, the Monterey game, the Leagues Cup final, there have been some really good crowds. What I will say for MLS regular season game, it felt like the first time where pretty much everyone was aware of the stakes and that we haven't always seen a crowd that knew that this was a major regular season matchup between two of the best teams in the league. Like when there have been games like that in the past, I will have been educated like, oh, this is a really like if they beat this team, then that means this. I think everyone entering that game knew that if Nashville got a win over Philly, it meant something. And
Right.
I mean, being a point off the supporter shield standings, but like it's a 1 versus 3, and I think that there was a lot more. Like it was more intense from the start, which we don't usually see for MLS regular season game. There were people in the stands early, and I also think the fireworks helped with this. To be fair, but because of people sticking around after the game for the fireworks, I think you saw a post game celebration that was reminiscent of the league's cup run because like when they did the song at the end, that's the most people that have ever participated in that song ever. The supporter section stayed mostly full. Although I will say, a lot of people, myself included, made a choice on whether or not to stick around for the fireworks or go to the concourse after a win like that. And we opted to go to the concourse
Absolutely.
to be with the La Brigada folks. But it was really interesting. The post game is the most like sort of celebration I've seen post game in the stands probably since the Monterey game, and I think that's because people were aware of the stakes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a couple things also helped with it, right? So I think uh, we we've criticized the club on this show before, and when they do, especially when it comes to tickets and selling tickets and the way they reach out to communities. At the same time, we have to come here and maybe give them props a little bit for and I talked about this last week as well, for the sort of way they're trying to break into fans that maybe aren't familiar with soccer, especially here in the summer where there aren't really a whole lot of sports going on in Nashville. And the other first division teams, at least, are just not very good at the moment. So the two programs that I'm referring to is first match on the club. So that's any local person trying to go to a game, they can go in for free. And then the second program is no fees on tickets for July, I believe, for the entire month. That's something that we haven't seen as much of, I think, from Nashville SC, and I think MLS needs that. There's always this sort of Twitter discourse about, well, tickets are $10. That's why the stadium is full. So what? That's the point of the game. We want people there, right? That's how you grow the game. Cheap tickets, free tickets, all of those are, that doesn't belittle your crowd. That doesn't belittle who's out there. And I think I saw no less than like five people on Twitter the following day or at that night saying that was either their first game or one of their first games, and they'll be back to Geodis Park because that's how you create that sort of returning, I hate to use the word customer and I hate to use the word product, but that's what it was. It was a product. And then the other thing that helped is that there was that penalty moment at the end, right? And we'll get to the actual game in the second segment. But there was a moment where people can put their phones out. There was a moment where everybody can lock in to this one thing. So that really helped build this atmosphere. And to Clay's point, we haven't seen a regular season game matter this much because Nashville have never been a Supporters Shield contender. They've been good teams. There have been teams where they've made the playoffs. There has never been a point where Nashville SC were Supporters Shield contenders, at least not that I remember. Maybe for a week or so, but as of today, as we're recording this, they are 1 point away from the Supporters Shield, and they are 100% a solidified contender in this race.
And I mean, the thing about it too is that we're still at mid-season. We don't specifically know what the ceiling is going to be. Obviously, we want everybody to be there on Wednesday as well for a massive Open Cup match for Nashville SC. Like one of the bigger chances for us to actually win a trophy this year is going to be in the Open Cup. Obviously, we're going to talk about that. Like, I think this is the most that like I've seen even on a Monday, just the team being covered from a media perspective that I've seen so far. So please keep it up. Keep that momentum up because like this is I think BJ said it best. I think he took it in the press conference specifically to be like, you do not understand how much the fans and the atmosphere means to us. Like when we're down a man in the 70th or 80th, like it really does matter. You being there, it's a little bit different than other sports. It really does matter. So take that time. And then, as the negative one of the show, I have to be hi, everybody. Welcome to Valer It Out. This is a podcast within a podcast about Valerian stuff out. Supporters, I love you to death. I love what you are doing in the stands. I just have one note. Please, for the love of God, slow down the corner chant. That's it. That is the only note that I have. It could ring throughout the stadium like nobody's business if you slow it down. It is not NSC clap 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 and get through it. It is NSC clap clap clap. Keep it slower. Thank you. That is all I have. I will let you two.
Can I continue? Can I continue this rant just really quickly?
Absolutely.
Well, I've been out of the supporters game for a few years, so I don't want to, maybe give a whole lot of notes. But after seeing the Esperance fans and the Boca Juniors fans, I really think Nashville SC fans should stick with a chant for longer periods of times. Boca Juniors did one chant for 15 minutes. I'm not even exaggerating. For 15 minutes, they did the same chant till everybody was singing it. Just keep doing Vamos Nashville. It'll be fine.
I disagree with that so much, but I will let you have it.
Well, Steven disagrees with it because it was a fight that Steven got into whenever he was in. It might be a point of contention.
I was very democratic in my approach.
But anyway, What I will say is that it's very easy to watch on TV and say that supporters need to tone it down a little bit, because in person the vibe was pretty insane. So you can
Yeah,
understand being excited, especially since there were so few corners. Um, it was a game where it just felt like corners were very limited for huge chunks of the game. And I do want to mention this. I put in the rundown as to whether or not this is the biggest regular season win ever. Uh, I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment. 2021 had some pretty big ones. Obviously, this team has 4 losses this year. 2021 had 4 losses total. So I don't want to get lost in that. But I think in terms of like having a packed house, the stakes of it, and not feeling like it's a place you're renting, like it's your actual home, uh, I wouldn't I wouldn't argue if anyone would call this the biggest regular season win ever. Now, if Nashville gets to the end of the season, given where they are right now, if this still ranks as the biggest regular season win ever, this is like the moving of the goalposts here. But like, I think that would be kind of a letdown, because I think they're in a position to have even bigger ones going forward from here.
Well, I think from that perspective too, it kind of talks about, Nashville literally being in second place when it comes to the supporter shield right now. Is we just did a double over one of the best teams in the East. I mean, we beat them away and we
And
beat them at home. Like
and
I
Nashville plays Cincy, so they control their own fate technically. Like
right.
Nashville controls their own fate.
Yeah, and I mean, it's going to be interesting when we get to the end of the season and how we. I think some of these matches are going to look different in perspective when we do get to the end of the season, just to see, where this team does end up. We still have 2 matches against Inter Miami, right? Inter Miami still specifically, I think they have 4 games in hand that they
yeah.
still have left to play. There's still some guessing on where the season is going to turn out. But I think when it comes to almost like USL vibes of matches, that like having that in Geodis Park, we didn't have a ton of. I think one of the bigger matches would be the Open Cup against Atlanta that went to extra time that was delayed when it came to the vibes and just like the overall like. But we haven't had a ton of those like past 90-minute victories like we did on Saturday, and so I mean, it's up there. But did you guys ever think that Nashville would be in second place in the Supporter Shield? By the way, going into this season.
The beauty of the internet is that you can
Steven
go back
did.
to this very
Technically, Steven
podcast.
did.
Technically, I did. Yes.
But he didn't really think that though. He wished that. That's two different things.
It,
I'm just
I
saying he
think
technically put it on his predictions.
I think I think going back into like earlier episodes of the show or just whatever is published on 615soccer.com, like this is clearly overachieving, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but it's just this is not what the first full year of BJ Callahan was supposed to look like, and I think that's a really positive thing. But at the same time, I let's keep it in perspective. There, like Steven said, it's still about halfway through the season, so things can change. I'm not saying expectations shouldn't be adjusted. That's just how soccer works, how sports works. Expectations are adjusted, and that is okay. It's okay to expect Nashville SC to go on and win the Supporters Shield or be a contender until the very end. But at the same time, if they don't do that this year, it's not the end of the world. So just keep it in perspective. I think because regardless, by the end of the season, it's hard for me to not see this team overachieving from what they were expected at the beginning of the season.
But we are going to talk about the match here in the next segment. A lot to talk about when it comes to the match. Even though it was 0-0 again for 100 minutes, there's still so much to talk about. And of course, we will talk about the Open Cup match coming up, as well as some Gold Cup stuff that we do need to touch on and then leave automatically. We're going to do all of that next, right here on Pharmaceutical Soccer. And we are back right here on Pharmaceutical Soccer at PharmaSoccer on our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can also check out 615soccer.com, spell it out. A lot of great content going on there because Ben Wright is on vacation at the current moment. Valaire is doing it all. So if you want just a little bit more not as good content at the current moment, go to 615soccer.com. Check
Hold
all of
up,
that out.
hold up.
Sorry, what do you got, Blair?
I don't accept the premise of this intro. First and foremost,
You
I
have
do
right.
want to
You
say
don't have right in your last name, so your content can't be as. I think that's how
uh,
it works, though.
I want to say this. I don't think I understood how much Ben does on any given match day. because I was like, yeah, I'll cover for you, man. Go do your thing. It's just his brother's getting married or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, man, go ahead. I'll do the graphics and I'll post the lineup and I'll do the story afterwards and I'll cover the USMNT. Why not? And then like by like Sunday night, which was the second day of me covering, I was just like, okay, Ben is back tomorrow, and yeah, I'm good. I think he's I think this is a two-man job.
But with that being said, there is a ton of content, whether you root for the U.S. men's national team, whether you root for Nashville SC, please go check it out. Always doing a ton of stuff there. Would love to have you be a part of it. Even with the Open Cup stuff coming out, there's going to be a lot of coverage involving the Open Cup. Please make sure you do check that out, 615soccer.com, as well as pharmasoccer.com. Go get you some Pharma Soccer merch. Go do it.
So first time ever, I wore Pharma Soccer merch during a match, and I put it on in the second half, and I thought it was going to be a really bad omen because the red card happened. And then Nashville won, so I was like, hey, look, maybe if you want some good luck, go get your Pharma merch.
I had one person ask where they could buy my shirt. So shout out to Joe. And that Pharma
Willis?
Soccer shirt
I
has
was
yet
going
to
to
see
say,
a
is it
large.
Joe Willis
Joe
asked where he
Willis?
could buy your shirt?
Yeah, that's who.
We
No.
picked you up from the bottom. You're just like that guy.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. But
I
anyway,
lost
please
my
go
Pharma
buy
merch,
shirt.
so I'm going to go buy more as well. So please make sure you also to go do that because I'm genius at this.
So you
Okay,
lost
anyways,
it?
yeah,
Like you
we're just gonna
misplaced it,
we're
or
gonna
like somebody stole it?
misplaced it.
Oh, okay. Damn, that would have been a good
Classic.
story.
Classic.
Nashville, of course, getting the 1-0 win at home against the Philadelphia Union. Yes, we're moving on, Clay.
No, I'm just saying Steven loses things, but you know who doesn't lose things? Nashville
Hey.
SC.
Of course, Hany Mukhtar getting the penalty in the 100th minute. Was it? I think it was like 98th, 7th.
Well, the penalty call was in the 90s, but the actual penalty went in at 120 seconds, maybe. So technically, 101st minute goal.
But look, we've covered 0-0 matches before a lot. And normally those shows we are looking to just go through in any way, in any sort of way. Like especially even matches where there's a penalty at the end where it happens. But this might have been one of the most entertaining like 0-0 draws up to the 100th minute I've ever seen. Especially just from the way that both teams were playing. It lived up to the hype.
Well, and I also think like that history of scoreless draws may have helped Nashville in this type of game because I was sitting there and I have witnesses to this. I just want to say I have witnesses to this. And about the 85th, 90th minute, I'm just like, if they can get one chance just squeezed out to Hany Mukhtar on the break, like they might be able to do something. I was bemoaning not having Schaffelberg because that's like the kind of guy. But we've seen Nashville score goals like that. And I was like, if they can just get Hany in space, maybe he can do something. And because that's what they used to have to do every game. So I do find it interesting that it ended up playing out pretty much like that. Although it would have been a wonderful goal for Ahmed Qasim too. Like that would have been a really cool way to end it as well. But it was a really, really like physical game. Like it was a playoff game. It was a playoff game in the
And
way that it played out.
that's exactly what Hani said. He called it a playoff game because of its intensity and because of how much Philadelphia brought into it. But let's be honest, Philadelphia has been doing this for 5-6 years now in the league. Last year was a blip for them, but every other year they've been in the top 3, I think, of the East. So this is not that they are used to this intensity. They are used to this rhythm. And for Nashville SC to not only compete with Philadelphia, but beat them twice at home and away, it showcases where this team is in terms of that hierarchy of Eastern Conference teams. And honestly, looking at it, especially in the first half, Nashville SC were the much better team. Now Philly did have moments. They had moments. I don't want to take anything away from them. And let's get this out of the way as well. They were missing players, whether it's the national team or Ty Bariba just coming back from injury, all that stuff. So this is not the full Philadelphia Union squad. Argument can be made that this is not the full Nashville squad because Walker Zimmerman is not there.
Right.
But all that aside, talking about the match itself, Nashville deserved to come out of this match with 3 points. I don't think it was one of those where, they kind of lucked into it. And I think the structure defensively and the organization defensively, earlier, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, I wrote a preview and I said the organization defensively and what BJ Callahan calls controlled aggression in midfield really puts that platform for the attackers to do what they do. And it's not only just them being like, all right, we're defending here, now you guys do your thing, which was something Nashville did a lot, especially with Hany Mukhtar, like Clay was saying. It's a collective. So they're not only organized at the back, and not only are they sort of being able to keep teams away from the goal, but they're also aiding going forward. And I think when we're talking about these superstars like Sam Surridge leading the Golden Boot race, Hany Mukhtar, back to his MVP form, and even when we go Andy Nahar, Eddie Taxath, and everything, I think the collective. I was listening to MLS Wrapped yesterday, and they said that Nashville has, it's a complete team from the goalie to the striker. And I truly believe that. I think it was Sasha Kleshchen who said that. And I truly believe that Nashville is building towards that collective that is just unstoppable at the moment.
Well, it was even funny to see the Philadelphia fans' reactions to this match. It wasn't necessarily they were in disdain. It was, well, hey, we went away to one of the best teams in the East with less players and still did okay. That was more the result from the Philadelphia fans, where it's like, wait, we are one of the best teams in the East. Oh, hey, people are happy that they do okay against us. This is fun to see.
Well, truly, getting results without your top side, that is what defines the great teams in MLS. And Philly knows that because Philly has moved guys in and out and in and out of that lineup for the better part of a decade. And they've maintained a level as a team. So it's like, well, Philly didn't have some of their best players, but we have like years and years of evidence that doesn't fully matter because of the way they play. And I think you're now starting to see that evidence from Nashville. Nashville hasn't played with, one of the best defenders in the history of the league for the better part of 2 months. And they've maintained one of the best defensive records the last month or so. They've been great. I mean, not just good, they've been great. And so I think that is where Jacob Schaffelberg, if he was out last year, you'd say that's a huge loss. He's barely playing right now. And so that's where you start to see that these collective, the team, it doesn't really matter. It does, but you know what I'm saying? It doesn't really matter who's out there because the team is good and the way they play is good. And that's the big separator, the wheat from the chaff in MLS.
Well, let me guide the conversation because we should specifically talk about the match itself. It's so easy to talk about just like what this match meant from a broad perspective, but you get into the lineup specifically at first. Very expected lineup. Eddie tags it back from suspension, so he was in the match specifically. I think Jonathan Perez probably earned his start to be there on the right side as well. Very, a match that had in the first half for Nashville specifically, you were shocked that they did not walk out of that first half with a goal. I think the XG for Nashville is like 0.9. After that first half, Hany hit the post. Sam Surridge had a couple opportunities as well. You were shocked in that first half that they did not score.
To be fair, Philly had one cleared off the line as well in the first half.
I
Just
do.
have to.
I do want to talk about Palacios as well at some point, where it was his clear that then did lead to the one where he cleared off the back line, which is hilarious to me. But no, I mean, yeah, that first half set the tone because again, it was physical. There was a lot going on. Ref did not
I,
manage the game extremely well, even in the first half, which led to a problem in the second half.
well, I think we have to mention Andre Blake, and that even with maybe maybe he's dropped off a bit from his peak, but he's still one of the best goalkeepers in MLS. And Hani Mukhtar said that himself in the post match press conference. Look, Andre Blake starts for Jamaica for a reason. He's been a pillar in this Philly team for a reason, and he showed up big multiple times throughout the game, but especially in that first half. The Hani Mukhtar, when it hit the post, before that Andre Blake had saved Hani Mukhtar's first effort. So it's like, you need these sort of things to go your way a little bit if you're Philly. But at the same time, Nashville were the aggressor, in terms of the ball and keeping the ball, and that's to be expected now, even against a team like Philly. And there were times where the Philly press did scare Nashville a little bit. There were a couple moments where the Philadelphia press just naturally, because they're so good at it, caused some issues for Nashville. So I don't want to make it seem like it was a one-sided half or anything, but Nashville were closer to a goal, even though Philly got close themselves. The second half, I thought Philadelphia kind of started getting into the rhythm of the game. Now, that said, they didn't really end up with huge chances, but another guy we're going to talk about is Joe Willis, leading into that red card, which was the moment that changed everything in the game. And I thought before the red card in the second half, it was kind of a balanced thing back and forth. And then the red card happens, and that's when the game state changed completely. So I think without that red card, we I don't I just don't
Did
know if
it
either team would have broken through. I
did
just
it
really don't know.
change did it change completely though? Like, to me, in my opinion, it didn't seem like Nashville the way that Nashville was playing was a ton different than when the red
Nashville
card happened.
Nashville defended way more after the red card. They
Yeah,
were
I
they
mean,
were on
even
their heels.
if you look at the flow of the game, I mean, Philly just really takes charge of the match of the ball from that red card on, and I mean, it's to be expected. Look, you're with
Yeah.
10 men. I'm not saying this as a being critical, but that's just kind of what happened.
Well, and kind of on that regard, it was very funny because at the half, I talked to a few people that listened to the show, but it really felt like the referee knew the stakes of the match, and so he was afraid to make the call. Like there was obviously a few shouts for a high boot against a Philly player in the 18 that were not looked at. There was a particular one where it was kind of a 50-50 tackle in midfield, and the ref let it go. Then he looked up and saw it was going to be a 3-on-2 for Nashville, and then he pulled it back. So it's like he didn't want to affect the game with like a 50-50 call, and then that's the way it felt at halftime. And then like very quickly in the second half there was like a very quick red card that is probably, I mean, we'd say it's a red card if it was the other way around, so like it's a red card, but it's more unfortunate than anything else. And i
I think
just
somebody
I
in the
found it very
6-1
interesting because he kind of lost control in the first half because he was letting everything happen, and then the second half it just felt like really really quick, and then a red card out of nowhere.
I think somebody in the Discord, in the 615 Discord, actually had it correctly. And I forgot, it might have been Ronan actually who did, who specifically said this is a overreaction to underreactions throughout the entire match. Where I think that's possibly like, I think that's probably the best reaction. I do think if you look at the video of it though, it studs to the neck. Like, I think if because the call on the field is a red card, the video is going to look like it studs to the neck, no matter how um how it might have actually gone when it comes to the run of play. The video is going to show that it's going to be a red card every single time. I think it's fairly obvious from Jonathan like that he did not need to make that high boot specifically. Like he wasn't particularly near the ball. Um,
I
I
just
don't
don't
think
know if
the
he knew much about it. Honestly, I just don't know if he knew where his foot is gonna be compared to the Philly player. Right? And I mean, look, once that red card was shown on the field, it was too late. There was no returning that.
right.
So I don't want to make it sound like
Well, I mean,
You know,
it would have if he didn't make contact with the player, but he did make contact with the player. So it's kind of
he,
hard to take away from that.
I do, it is what it is on the red card, but I do find it interesting the immediate following of the red card because I think that we all would have, knowing the stakes again, we all might have expected a more defensive, reaction to that red card. And there were some defensive subs made later, but like I found the I found it very interesting coming out of it. There was an offensive sub. Now it was
Yeah.
already planned, but like given the situation that played out, bringing in Ahmed Qasim into a scoreless game, down a man, a guy who, on the basis of the season, hasn't always been there defensively. Like that's been one of the sort of criticisms of him in the matches that he's played was a huge vote of confidence. Like even if it was planned, even if he was a previously planned sub, it's a huge vote of confidence and Philly tested it. I mean, Philly definitely targeted him that in those last 20 minutes to try and see if he'd be the one to make the mistake that led to a goal. But I just found it very, very interesting, and I think you have to give a lot of credit on a gamble like that working out, especially if he would have been the one who scored the goal because he almost was.
Yeah. I
yeah,
think like go ahead,
I,
Valer.
I, ju- I just see like that sub, and I see the Carlton sub in DC, and I really think BJ, you know, practices what he preaches in terms of it's a next man up mentality, and he has full trust and full belief in these players. And sometimes, look, sometimes players make mistakes, and maybe not necessarily lose that trust, but start questioning that trust. But giving players that sort of responsibility has really shown over and over throughout the whole season, the course of the season, that it is giving them more confidence and making them better players than anything else. So you'll take some of the bad, obviously, because there is bad when you play younger players, especially. But the good has been so good that you really rarely ever think about the quote unquote bad, especially when you're in a 14 game winning streak where
Right.
there isn't really anything that bad.
Well, yeah, I mean, from a costume perspective, BJ had look, you are coming on, we are down a man, you are going to play defense. You are going to run your butt off and and that is exactly what he did. Like I think that is the most I've seen Costume actually like running around the field like a madman probably in any of the matches that normally he's a little bit more controlled in kind of the positioning that he has. But he was all over the field making defensive plays on the left side, on the right side, everywhere. And I think it was very collective as I think you saw after the red card, you saw Eddie Tagstaff doing the same thing where normally he was running even more after that red card. Like everybody was doing it as a team specifically in response to the red card because they knew that they still had the quality of player out there to win the game in some way, shape, or form. And it almost happened multiple times at the end, even before the Hany penalty. Um, and there's a couple players I think we do need to specifically talk about that had phenomenal matches. Let's talk about Palacios first, because I think in the way that Palacios has stepped in to, an injured Walker, in a Walker in international duty, nobody expected Palacios to be as dominant in the position as center back as he currently is.
Yeah. I just don't think even the biggest of optimists, even Mike Jacobs himself or Jason Palacios himself, thought this season would go this well so far for him. And that's a testament to the scouting, to the recruiting, and to Jason Palacios himself coming into a new country, a new league. He doesn't speak the language very well. We've talked about that before, but he is able to not only cover for Walker Zimmerman, but truly give BJ Callahan something to think about once Walker is available again for him. And I don't know if it's necessarily like here's 1, 2, and 3 with him, Jack Mayer, and Walker Zimmerman. I think it's more so there are minutes out there, and all three of them will play those minutes at one point or another. But man, what an impressive guy! It seems like we come on this show every week and we have one or two guys that we've kind of targeted to talk about, but that's because everybody's putting their parts, and that's kind of what I was talking in to the top of this segment. But for Palacios himself to be able to be that defensive the defensive rock at the back, but also able to push forward. And how many times have we seen him make some great passes and move along the ball, and just being comfortable on the ball itself, that just kind of gives him a whole other dimension that BJ Callahan, I'm sure, glad he has him.
More so than Tagseth, Yazbek, like Palacios is the example of how the scouting and recruitment has changed for Nashville SC.
Yeah.
Like, I think that it's fair to say all of us on this show probably didn't have particularly high expectations when he was signed, not for anything that has to do with him, has nothing to do with him, but
Yeah.
because of Nashville's previous failures in signing players like him. And whether that be a Nazarene, obviously, but or a Pinheiro or a Bram Pekalis going way back. Like, we're like, well, we'll see what happens with them. And now again, you have a legitimate, like, this is the best group of center backs that Nashville SC has had since, Jack Mayer played well enough to get an $800,000 a year contract, and there was a real selection dilemma with Walker, Romney, and Mayer, and that's a real credit to Palacios, of course, but it's a real credit to the front office and their identification and how much better they are at it than they were a few years ago when it came to international signings.
Well, and I think it's crazy from a Palacio standpoint as well, where it seems like the defensive structure is actually now built around the way that he plays. I have never seen a center back for Nashville SC in the midfield as much as Palacios is when it comes to the press. And that is because of the fact that he is quick enough to get back on defense, not as much as like Walker. It's more of a consistent, I'm going up.
I'm just saying, Walker is up there quite a bit.
I do think he has the recovery speed, Steven. I think you're onto something. I think his recovery is probably the best in the team,
Yeah.
if we're being honest. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm with you there. Yeah, I think there's something. He backs himself in those situations, and he has yet to let himself or the team down. So it's only building up and up in that confidence.
Somebody else that's not letting the team down and who hasn't let the team down in a very long time would be Joe Willis as well, who I think we need to talk about this season, who's been phenomenal in the net specifically, where he plays his position. Nice job, Steven. Way to go there. But I mean, look, I think his positioning has been incredible this season in terms of just being into this system. I mean, he's so casual with his approach, but his positioning is so good.
Well, and I don't know if Valer or you will back me on this. That game felt like the most confident that I've seen Joe Willis look in those situations, because there was a lot of action in front of the goal at several points during that game, and he was, save a little bit here or there, which you'll have with any goalkeeper, he was usually out to get it. He received the ball under pressure several times and didn't have any issue with it. He was able to distribute better than uh, he does sometimes. Like, it was a really confident performance from Joe Willis, and I think, like, Nashville's been so spoiled to essentially get a guy who was a journeyman goalkeeper who has come to Nashville, and then partially because of the way Nashville plays and the people in front of him, been consistently, the anchor of one of the best, defensive teams in the league, and hasn't really had his spot challenged at any point over this run. Like, he there was a couple games here or there where Panico got in, but for the most part, Joe Willis has been like one of the first guys on the lineup the entire time he's been in Nashville, and like just an absolute, like, rock. And I just thought that the Philly game, he stood out in a very tight situation. He stood out in a big game and made every play that he needed to make.
Yeah, I just think he's in the upper echelon of MLS goalkeepers, and I don't think he gets the credit he deserves. Whether it being from, I think people in Nashville know him, but maybe folks just got used to Nashville being a good defensive team, and that somehow took credit away from Joe Willis, who has been just a solid starter. For a team that went through a whole lot of changes last season. The entire goalkeeping core except Joe Willis, was changed last season. Every single goalkeeper this club had, including Huntsville, changed last season, except Joe Willis. And I think that's a testament for him being able to not only play his game and be able to be at the top of his game, but adapt his game to what BJ Callahan wants from him and the coaching staff want from him, because he's able to add these layers, like playing on the ball, like being more comfortable, like Clay is saying. And it's really just a testament to his improvement personally.
And real quick before we kind of end this, we do have to talk about the one, the only Hany Mukhtar. Look, I think when I saw, I was so elated, like the way that he confidently took that penalty. Obviously, his performance throughout the match was absolutely incredible. Probably should have had a goal in the first half. But just what he has gone through with his, I mean, they announced it. The commentators announced it that he was 1 for 3 on the season when it came to penalties. There was a reason why Sam Surge was the one that's starting to take penalties. But the confidence that Hany had the ability to go in there and just absolutely power roof that ball into the net. He is our captain for a reason, and he showed it on Saturday.
Well, and I always thought the 1 for 3 penalties was kind of misleading. The one was a Panenka, and I think that his 2 penalties that were saved were good penalties. He was unlucky. And I don't think that his confidence was necessarily lacking, because the 2 penalties he made are a Panenka and one roofed into the top of the net. So I feel pretty. The thing for me that should never get lost is that Hany is a match winner. That's what he is. It's what he's done his entire career in MLS. He is a guy. There are very few people in this league that can find a way to win a match, not single handedly, because no one really can single handedly, but a guy you can say, Hany's on the field, anything can happen when Hany's on the field, because he's a match winner. And that is, there's probably maybe 5 or 6 people in the league that you can say that about. And it was a good reminder, because he went up, he won the penalty, he scored the penalty. And if you would have asked anybody how that game was going to end and the team was going to win it, and you had to choose any of the 21 players on the field to win the game, I think everyone to a man, Philly and Nashville, would have told you if there's one player that's going to win that game, it would be Hany Mukhtar, because that's what he does, and that's what he's done for his entirety of his stay in Nashville.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the way to end it, way to put it. We got some Gold Cup to talk about, as well as Open Cup to talk about, which is coming up. So we're gonna do that next, right here on Pharmaceutical Soccer. Again, everybody, welcome to Pharmaceutical Soccer. So glad that you are here with us. Of course, at PharmaSoccer on our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. 615soccer.com. If you spell that out in your browser, you're going to be just infatuated with all of the soccer content that we do have there. So please make sure you do check out 615soccer.com, as well as pharmasoccer.com for all of your merchandise that you would need from us. Would love to have you in some Pharma Soccer merch. Again, as we have stated, it's very lucky when it comes to this team. I don't want to take full credit as a podcast for the way this team is performing, but I do think we should probably take 75%. And that's because you guys are wearing our merch. So please make sure pharmasoccer.com for all of that merch. Our luck, though, does not translate to the Gold Cup in the U.S. men's national team, unfortunately. Maybe we should have some red, white, and blue Pharma Soccer. No, we're not going to do that. But I don't know. U.S. men's national team, bad. Good luck. Thank you for getting me not excited about the World Cup next year in my country.
I just want to say it's the second time in recent memory that the U.S. has hired a high-profile guy most closely associated with Spurs, and they failed in a big moment. I mean, at some point, you get what you pay for.
Thanks, Clay. You took the words right out of my mouth. No, I think it's I don't think it's the end of the world for the USMNT. It was definitely a weaker side than I think Pochettino would have wanted. Mexico came in, and look, I predicted Mexico to win this tournament because they had the better team and they were better in every aspect for the USMNT. There are a couple positives you can take from just the sort of players and their performances. But more on that, you can go to either the recap at 615soccer.com, or you can do the player ratings that I also did last night, as in Sunday night. Last year I didn't do a player rating. I don't think so, at least not for the USMNT at the very least. But yeah, you can read more about it, and obviously there are other outlets covering this a lot more in detail for than us. But Yeah, we just wanted to mention it because it's it's a competition that's happening in the U.S. just like the Club World Cup, and there's just a lot of soccer going on. So we're gonna stick to our lane and let the other podcasts cover the other stuff.
Absolutely. We stick to MLS, which I don't know. Anything that you guys want to highlight when it comes to MLS over? I mean, we have our best wishes to Stefan Fry, obviously, who went through a horrible incident yesterday. And shout out to Schmetzler and Wilfred Nancy for the way they handled that situation. I think it's very fair, and I think when incidents like that happen, um, having the teams just not like I think it's something that needs to be standard where sometimes there's more important things in sports. So shout out to them. I the the
I want to
Atlanta
say
United is
something.
bad.
I went on a show last week. It was these guys who do it's a soccer view show. That's what it's called, I think. And it's the folks out of NYC that do it. And they on the rundown had these words that I haven't even thought about for this season, but Leagues Cup. That's happening this season. And if you want to see a mess of a tournament in terms of how they're structuring that, please go read the Leagues Cup page. Now, Nashville SC is not involved in the Leagues Cup, and I am kind of glad because I don't want to
Thank
cover this competition again.
God.
Uh, so, all that said, it just seems like it's going to be probably not the best of time, and definitely not the best of time for MLS teams. So we'll see what happens there. But I just want to remind folks, because I was reminded that that's happening this summer as well.
It's like there's not enough competition, but that's okay. We don't have to pay attention to any of that. What we do have to pay attention though is to Nashville soccer, and not just Nashville SC soccer, but local soccer here in the city and state of Tennessee, which of course is covered in the best way possible by our own Clay Trainum every single week. So, Clay, why don't you give us that local soccer roundup?
Yeah, but just real quick on the MLS around the league point, I just want to say it'd be a real bummer if Evander had to get transferred out of Cincinnati. I would just really hate to see that for FC Cincinnati.
He's
Please,
balling. He's
please go away. Like if
balling.
Evander went away by the time that we play Cincinnati, that'd be great. So please go away.
um, so not a whole lot to speak about because the a lot of these leagues are starting to wrap up. Obviously, the USLW wrapped up with the TSC to the Tennessee Soccer Club team here locally. The Nashville Rhythm season did fall as they lost to Stevens Girls, Chattanooga FC, in the conference championship game. But an interesting season for the Rhythm. They've had a lot of turnover the last couple years in the roster, and just they have managed to stick around when a lot of teams haven't. So another successful year getting to the conference championship game. Hopefully they can get back into the national playoffs next season. And then the last team still left playing, at least in these national leagues, is the Tennessee Soccer Club USL League Two team. The boys, they lost 4-2 to Asheville last week. They have two more games left in their season. They will be going to Asheville, and then later this week they are playing at home against Birmingham. They play their home games at Nolensville High School. So that is everything, and that's going on in the club local soccer ranks, at least for the national leagues. This will turn into a college soccer segment here in about a month or so. So getting closer and closer to the college soccer season.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Clay, for that roundup. We also do have a quick mailbag question. If you are on the 615 Discord, if you're a part of that, you can ask specifically a question for us where we do a mailbag in this segment. And from Thomas, on July 2nd, happy Sports Journalist Day. The Sporting Press was founded on this day in Paris ahead of the 1924 Olympics. Who were your favorite sports writers growing up? Um, Clay, do you want to just get yours out of the way?
Yeah, I was kind of curious about Valaire's, considering his is going to be a little more worldly than ours potentially. But for me, I come from basketball world. I'm from Indiana, so Scoop Jackson and Lang Whitaker used to write a lot about the NBA for Slam magazine. Lang Whitaker actually now works for the Memphis Grizzlies, which is pretty wild. And then Ivis Galarcep in the soccer world, like Soccer by Ibis is still a thing, but back in the early days of soccer internet, it was Grant Wall and Ivis Galarsip were two of the big voices that you saw nationally talking about the U.S. team and MLS and whatnot. And then just a quick shout out to Andy McCullough, who is the Dodgers beat writer, go Dodgers, and Jim Wyatt here locally, because I definitely read him all the time watching the Titans play every weekend. So those were my guys.
Yeah, I think I'll start with some sort of MLS ones that I think really helped me get into the league a little bit. I didn't do a whole lot of reading sports. I guess it was more of a TV thing for me back home. So you know what? There's a guy named Mustafa Al Agha, and he did a show. I think the show ran actually from like early 2000s. I think last year was the last episode, and it was a show at night, like 5 nights a week, where he just talked everything soccer, and I just glued to that every day pretty much. As a kid, that was kind of like a huge influence on me. But then here in America, I would say like Stam Stejskal was really a guy I looked up to, and it was awesome because he was the first like national reporter I think to come on Pharma Soccer, and I just messaged him, and he was super nice to. Maybe Charlie Bowen was first. Actually, I don't remember who was first, but one of them came first, and Sam Stejskal was just great to interview and to have on the show, and Paul Tenario as well. Obviously, his teammate in the allocation disorder. So I think it's those guys who kind of helped me get into the league. But I think I have to mention Matt Doyle as well, and David Goss, who did tremendous work with Extra Time Radio and MLS in general. And I think those are the guys who made me fall in love with MLS and the storylines and all that. And honestly, it was one of those things where MLS was such a outside thought for me, something I've never experienced or talked about or thought about. And then I got immersed in it, and then it was just kind of immediate where I just became an obsessed with the league, and then now I'm covering the league, and it's all thanks to those guys and all the work they did. So a lot of other names. Those are the kind of top of mind at the moment.
Yeah, I grew up in Michigan, so have a couple of there specifically. Actually, one friend of the show, Tim Sullivan, for Club and Country, used to work for when it came to MGO blog. So shout out to MGO Brian for always having that Michigan content in the best way. Always appreciated that. There's a couple in Michigan as well that work for the Detroit Free Press. Mike Wojnarowski was fantastic in his coverage of Detroit sports, as well as Jamie Samuelson, who I really looked up to as a writer, but who unfortunately died of colon cancer early on in 2021. So those two, like those three specifically for me, like if I didn't read a ton, but if I did, I really liked their pieces. So,
And if you have a question that you'd like us to answer, please check out the mailbag. But also, we don't have any new reviews this week, unfortunately. But we do have a Spotify comment. And the Spotify comment has a ton to do with soccer. So I'm just going to let you know we also read our comments on Spotify. And this one is from Corey Wayne, who says that Archer is a great show if you skip the last season or two. So I agree.
And thanks for that.
Hey, they left a comment. We're gonna make sure that they know we saw it.
so yes, Spotify comments and like anywhere there's a review, we're going to read it out. So if you want to leave us a review, please make sure that you do.
We'll
Uh,
read it out if it's 5 stars. Just we gotta put that disclaimer.
that's true.
We're not gonna read the bad ones.
Look, we have another busy week this week when it comes to matches, Open Cup as well as a big match on Saturday. But we need to talk about the Open Cup to start off. We play DC at home on Wednesday at Geodis at 8 p.m. We played DC. I was here for it a week and a half ago. DC is terrible, and they are a miserable team, and they are not good. They are just not good.
Well,
But
why don't you read what I wrote? Read what I wrote.
DC is miserable and make every team they play as miserable as yeah, pretty much. That is DC United. Is that they are not fun to watch. It was like watching us in the beginning of the season last year. Not a fun team to watch, not a ton going on. So you have to assume with that, the Open Cup being probably the most meaningful thing for them, they're going to take this competition pretty seriously, though. And that is
Yeah.
something that Nashville has to prepare for.
And look, I think in 2010 or 2011, I can't remember the exact year, DC United won the Wooden Spoon and won the Open Cup in the same year. And that is a specialty for DC United that no other team can claim. And if they do it again this year, nobody would be surprised. But I think the main thing with DC is that this team gave Nashville trouble, and I don't mean that in sort of like them being too good or better than Nashville. I just mean that they play in an annoying way that Nashville have struggled to maybe break them down as well as they want to. One goal in two matches, one home, one away. Obviously, things are different in the Open Cup, but if anything, I'm expecting DC to even be more compact and more in a lower block, and the onus is gonna be on Nashville. This is a home game for Nashville C to break them and to be able to find those solutions. So I think if I'm DC, I'm looking at this as an opportunity because I know how to play this team and I've played this team a couple times. If I'm Nashville, I just don't think you bother with any sort of I don't think you even bother with the first two games against DC and just go at it as, hey, look, this is an important cup game, and if we win it, we're through to the semifinal. There are three wins that require Nashville to win a cup, and this is the first one that they need. So I see no opportunity here to not take it seriously for Nashville as well.
I'm very curious to see what Nashville does because
Yeah.
this game does come at an interesting time. DC is bracketed by two of the best teams that Nashville would conceivably play in terms of like the challenge presented. It's away to Miami. That was a tough one. And coming off Philly, obviously a tough one. DC's in between. You know, I can see a scenario where Nashville puts out pretty close to a first 11 to prioritize this because it is 3 wins from the club's first trophy. But given what we saw happen in Orlando, I'm very curious to see how serious this gets taken because a B plus A minus team should probably be good enough to beat DC, in theory. But I'm very, very, very curious about Nashville's approach to this DC game because I think that it's justifiable to, maybe see what you can get with your reserves. And I also find that similarly unjustifiable because you're 3 wins away from a trophy. So it's a real selection dilemma for BJ going into this week because it is 2 tough games that it is bracketed by, and in weather that is hot. Like the Philly game was hot, and Miami in July is going to be, a warm, humid night as well.
Steven, you're muted, but you seem like you're really making a good point.
In what Yes, I was actually. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. In terms of what those 3 wins and what that looks like, it was talked about by both Blair and Clay. If Nashville does beat DC on Wednesday, they would play the winner of the Philadelphia Union and the Red Bulls in the semifinal, or the Red Bulls in the semifinal. If Philadelphia Union does win, we would have another match against Philadelphia at home at Geodis. If the Red Bulls were to win, it would be in Newark, New Jersey. Sorry, not New York. That we would play the Red Bulls. And then say we were to win that match, we would go to the West, where we do have the ability to play Austin, Minnesota, San Jose. Don't tell me. Don't hold on. I could get this third one. Is it San Diego?
No.
Kansas
Do you
City?
want me?
No, it's
No, it's not a Western team.
Chicago. God,
Yeah, there you go.
idiot. Oh, I did so good.
It makes no
it's
sense
the
to
one
be
I'm rooting
fair,
for,
but
honestly. If
yeah.
if we make it, I would love to go to Chicago. But
I would love to go to
the
Minnesota. I'm
I
rooting for
and
Minnesota.
really quickly, the Red Bulls do not play in Newark. They play in Harrison, New Jersey, but it's all New Jersey,
yes,
so who cares?
I mean
Yeah,
it's
I
the
think
Newark area.
I don't know. Do you guys, as Nashville Do you guys prefer Nashville go to Red Bulls or host Philly again for a semifinal? If DC was passed, what is the preference here?
Host
I
Philly.
I think that I mean it's really a tough proposition either way. Is it going to Red
Right?
Bulls when Nashville's record is not great, or Philly? But the one thing that's really important that we should make sure folks know is that this game won't happen for a couple months
Yeah. Yeah.
because
September. Yeah.
it's September and October the next two rounds.
Yeah.
So it is a long-term proposition to play these teams. So we wouldn't necessarily be seeing them in the current moment that they're in, which I think is important to remember because Philly is, they're waiting on guys to come back. The Red Bulls are kind of in an interesting form too. So it won't be for a few months
Will they have
if
Timo
Nashville
Werner?
beats DC.
Will they have
What?
Timo Werner by the time that we play in the Open Cup? Who knows? But there is another match coming up on Saturday against Miami. Massive, by the way, in Miami. Like massive implications as well to go to Miami after their Club World Cup performances, where they actually did fairly well, just not against PSG in the competition. It'll be curious on the lineup that they put out there as well. Kind of
They're trying to catch up. They're trying to catch up on games, and they played Montreal on Saturday. Wednesday they have New England away as well. Then they come back home to Nashville, and then they have a Wednesday again. So it's Saturday, Wednesday for them. And as we know, some of their players are a little up there in age. My guess would be that those players will be prioritized for the home matches, i.e., the Nashville match, especially considering where Nashville is on the table and where Miami is. That said, some rotation will be in place there for both teams. I think all eyes are obviously on Miami, and there's just more eyes on Miami. If Nashville can go out there and get a win, I think that'll be just a big result. But I think if you can just keep the keep the unbeaten streak alive after this stretch of Philly, DC, Miami, if the unbeaten streak is still alive, puts you at 16 games. That is a big result for Nashville.
And it doesn't get any easier because it's Miami on Saturday, then Columbus on Wednesday,
Yeah,
and then there's a game against Toronto, whatever, and then it's away to San Diego. This is a bit of a buzzsaw part of Nashville SC's schedule, but if they make it through it the same way they made it through June, if they make it through these next few weeks, I mean, they'll go from being a contender to being a favorite for the Supporters
yeah.
Shield.
So, predictions for this week. Let's start with Open Cup and then just go straight to Miami. Valaire, let's start with you.
Open Cup is going to be a 1-0 Nashville SC win. Way less exciting than the 1-0 against Philly. But Nashville will get the winner, and just quality will show eventually. I think that goal is going to be scored by Jacob Schaffelberg, who will return as a starter for the match. And then you can follow me at Valer Shabilla on all socials and go to 615soccer.com, please, and subscribe there. Your subscription helps us keep this show going and everything we do at 615 Soccer going. So my prediction for the Miami game is a Nashville SC loss. It will be a 2-1 loss where Messi will score a brace, and that will be the storyline. However, Nashville will give them a good fight. But it's just maybe asking too much of Nashville to go away to Miami after a 15 game unbeaten streak and still get a win. So that's my prediction.
Clay.
And then you can follow me at Clay Lassol on both Instagram and Twitter. I am significantly more active on Twitter than Instagram. As for Wednesday, I think Nashville wins probably. I think 1-0 is a good shot. I think Nashville scores early and then annoyingly doesn't score a second. And it's a nervy game, but they get through. And I think it's a nervy game because we'll see a lot of backups play. And then in Miami, I think that one's going to be a bit of a I think that one's going to be a fun one. I'm going to say a 2-2 draw. Messi scores both for Miami, and Nashville gets goals from the last 14 goals have been scored by either Sam Surridge or Hany Mukhtar, and I think that streak continues. I think Surridge scores against DC, and I think both score against Miami, and it's 2-2.
At PH Steven HD on all of my stuff, guys. I'm worried about Wednesday. This has scared me the entire time. I know it was the best draw, but it scares me. I think we win in penalties after a 1-1 result. I think we let up a late goal against DC and then end up winning in penalties. And then on Saturday against Miami, I like the 2-2 shout out, but just to give a prediction, I believe Lionel Messi and Jack Mayer renew their beef that happened in Miami not too long ago, and they both get red cards, and that's fun for me. But
I was expecting that like Nashville plays DC, then signs Lucas McNaughton, and Lucas McNaughton goes to Miami.
thank you guys so much for listening to the show. We really do appreciate it. We know it's a longer episode, but we've just been so excited to talk about Nashville soccer today, especially after that win. Please make sure you are with us next week as well to go over those two matches against Miami in the Open Cup. Love to talk about it. Thank you again so much for listening to the show. We appreciate it and hope you have a great rest of your week.